Dank und dass ich wieder da sein darf. Ich erzähle gleich, also ich heiße Jeffrey McGuire, man nennt mich eigentlich Jeff, das ist mein Kollege der Campbell Vertessi. Wir sind ganz aufgeregt, was in den letzten Jahren mit Drupal passiert ist, und das wollen wir ein bisschen mitteilen, ein bisschen Appetit vielleicht anregen. Es war nicht immer so. Talk ist auf Join-In, die Slides in der jetzigen Form sind schon auf Speaker Deck und Slideshare. Ich weiß, dass Slideshare hier nicht cool ist, aber in der ist es ein bisschen beliebter. So, ich wollte mich vorab auch bei meiner Firma Acque bedanken. Wir sind eine Drupal-Produkt- und Dienstleistungsfirma. Mein Titel ist Evangelist und ich darf sowas dann des Öfteren machen und ist eine große Freude. Unsere Dienstleistungen sind darauf gezielt, Arbeiten mit Drupal besser zu machen, so ganz kurz gesagt.
Und ich arbeite bei 4on1, das ist ein Full-Service Web Agency, spezialisiert, sagt man auf Deutsch? Hoffentlich? Oh Mann, erster Satz, ich habe schon Fehler gemacht. Ihr spezialisiert in NGOs und so. Und ja, ich mache meistens Drupal und bin 11 Jahre PHP-Entwickler mit spezialisierten Drupal.
Ja, und wir haben einen Talk hier eingereicht und die nette Leute von Symfony haben uns gebeten oder gefragt, ob wir das auf Deutsch machen können. Meine Firma gibt es in Deutschland erst seit Juli ganz offiziell, also ich darf jetzt zum ersten Mal überhaupt auf Deutsch arbeiten. Mal schauen, wie das geht. Das ist Campbells erste Präsentation überhaupt auf Deutsch. Was mich leicht gestört hat heute Morgen, war aber, dass das Ganze auf Englisch alles losging. Insofern, wenn es alles auseinanderbricht und wir weiter auf Englisch reden, ist das ein Problem. Ah, gut. Aber es wird vielleicht lustig, wenn wir das auf Deutsch versuchen. So, als Entwickler, ich weiß und von meiner Erfahrung mit verschiedenen Kundenschaften, es ist jetzt an der Zeit, modularer, größere angelegte Apps, Web-Apps zu bauen, Frontend hier, Datenquellen da, Web-Services und so weiter. Wir wollen effektiv vorschlagen, dass ihr demnächst Drupal 8 in Betracht zieht als Content Engine, einfach Drop-in und benutzen über APIs, Web Services und so weiter und User-Logins, Authentifizierung und Datenmodellierung etc. einfach Drupal 8 überlassen, weil es jetzt kompatibel ist, mit ganz vielen Symfony Komponenten versehen ist und so weiter.
Ich will zuerst eine kleine Sonder.
Ja, wer hat schon Drupal benutzt? Oh, toll. Und gemocht? Ja, wer hat Drupal 5, 6, 7 aufgemacht und hat gesagt, oh God, the arrays, never again. Drupal 8 ist eine schöne neue Welt und das wollen wir euch auch zeigen. Also das ist ganz anders gemacht und Objektorientierung und so weiter ist alles da. Es hat aber sehr viel, was ihr schon kennt als Symphonisten, als Open Source Entwickler. Es kann eine Menge Zeit sparen und es macht eine Menge Sachen schon sehr gescheit und unsere besondere Spezialität, wir legen sehr viel Wert auf die Benutzeroberfläche, also das heißt, dass wir unsere und eure Technologie für normale Endkunden und Benutzer zur Verfügung stellen und das ist, glaube ich, der größte Punkt, wo wir anderer Meinung sind mit den meisten komplexeren Systemen. Also sehr viel in der Benutzeroberfläche kann man schon erreichen. Wenn man einmal Drupal mag, gefällt es einfach. So, Can.
Oh man, I'm just going to go right into English. Meine Noten sind auf Englisch und dann muss ich den Kopf übersetzen. Wow. So we're going to talk about how the changes with Drupal 8, making it object-oriented, using a bunch of Symfony components, using a bunch of other components that you're familiar with, open you up to a lot of other application architecture choices that can save you a lot of time, money, effort, beer, by dropping in Drupal. So we mentioned you might have used Drupal in the past. Drupal 8 is totally neu aufgebaut, from the ground up, on object-oriented principles, actually taking a lot of inspiration specifically from Symfony and taking a few components specifically from Symfony. Right, and now introduction. So that's what we're going to talk about for you. So again, I'm Campbell Vertesi. I work with Forum 1 now as a technical architect. I've been a Drupalist and PHP developer for something like 10 years, which, don't make me say again, it makes me feel old. I'm about to become a dad, which makes me feel even older. But it's okay, I'm still cool, I'm wearing my flannel.
Ich bin alter Drupalist, kam aus dem technischen Bereich und bin gewechselt auf die dunkle Seite und arbeite in der Marketingabteilung seit 2011. Bin online sehr, sehr leicht zu finden, glaube ich. Horn Cologne ist mein Handle überall. Ich gebe einen Lightning Talk, was mein Handle, ich weiß nicht, ob das heute auch morgen ist, was Horn Cologne alles erklärt. Bin sehr aktiv in Sachen Podcasts, Medien und so weiter. Hoffentlich kann ich mit ein paar von euch diese Woche auch schön ein paar Interviews machen. Problembereich, was wir heute angehen. Solving the Framework versus CMS Dilemma. Symfony CMF Dokumentation. Hier steht ganz oben, before starting a new project, there is a difficult decision on whether it will be based on a framework or on a CMS.
Can I do this one? I want to do a voice.
Oh, okay, do it.
When choosing to use a framework, you need to spend much time creating CMS features for the project. On the other hand, when choosing to use a CMS, it's more difficult to build custom application functionality. It is impossible, or at least very hard, to customize the core parts of the CMS.
This is not true. Drupal 8 sitzt genau an der Stelle zwischen, also es ist als decoupled Framework und als CMS zu betrachten es ist leicht aufzubauen, leicht aufzusetzen. Datenmodellierung kann man schnell im Code oder in der Benutzeroberfläche machen und es löst das alles mit der Flexibilität einer Framework. Ja? Und wie gesagt, das ist die fundamentalste Designentscheidung unserer Community. Wir haben extrem komplexe Arbeitsvorgänge zur Verfügung gestellt in der Benutzeroberfläche und wir meinen daher eine ganz valide Alternative zum Beispiel zu Easy Publish, zu Symfony CMF und Co. und so weiter. Jetzt in der Welt von Composer und PHP-FIG und so weiter. Also wir glauben da, wir hatten ganz gut mit. Interview, das ich gemacht habe, hat man mir gesagt, also Drupal 8 ist das erste Produkt des PHP-FIG-Äras. Und das finde ich ganz toll. Es ist ein Meta-Produkt und es hat extrem viel von anderen Communities ausgeliehen und wir sind jetzt eigentlich ein Teil von einer viel größeren Gruppe und wir profitieren davon, indem wir stabile, sichere, effiziente Teile benutzen und wir können unsere Ideen auch beidseitig sehr, sehr einfach austauschen mittlerweile. Larry Garfield, wer kennt Krell, der sitzt in PHP-FIG für Drupal, ja, und Drupal ist gebrandmarkt vor einigen Jahren, da waren Sicherheitsprobleme und wir hatten in einer externen Geschichte und wir hatten größtartige Probleme da rauszukommen und lange Zeit haben wir nichts von der Außenwelt benutzt. Wir waren auf einer Insel und wir hatten eine Not Invented Here Syndrome, ganz stark. Mittlerweile stehen wir auf Proudly Invented Elsewhere, because who doesn't like pie? Und ein Teil dessen, was wir in Drupal 8 benutzen, was ihr schon kennt, ne? Backbone, Symfony, Composer, Easy RDF, Doctrine, TWIG, YAML, Guzzle, etc. pp. Das letzte Mal, dass ich geguckt habe, sind 9 Symfony-Projekte, Bundles, weiß nicht, in Drupal 8 Core. Und es gibt von unserer Seite eine ganz große Liebe zu Symfony mittlerweile und wir sind sehr stolz darauf, was wir hier aufgebaut haben. Und ich meine, dass das nicht ganz nach außen gekommen ist. Also das geht jetzt erst los. Drupal 8 Release Candidate 1 ist letzte Woche rausgekommen, oder diese Woche? Letzte Woche rausgekommen. Also das hat sehr, sehr lange gedauert, aber das ist echt, ist an der Zeit und das ist ganz toll. PHP-FIG, also diese PHP-Renaissance, von dem man spricht, davon profitieren wir großartig. Und also die Design-Idee hauptsächlich von heute, man schreibt nicht mehr spezifische Sachen für Drupal, für was auch immer, man schreibt eine agnostische Library für irgendwas und dann die Implementierung für Drupal, für Symfony. In unserem Fall so eine Implementation heißt Module, ne? Module. Bei euch sind das Bundles. Im Prinzip schreiben wir aber gute Libraries und dann bringen sie rein zu unseren jeweiligen Sachen.
Was wir finden sehr hilfreich für euch ist, dass Drupal hat so eine lange Geschichte von Integrationsmodulen. Und ja, heutzutage sind die mehr Drupal-spezifische Code, aber mit Drupal 8 dann integrieren wir mehr Standard Libraries. Aber ist schon bereit, so viele verschiedene Integrationen zu machen. Out of the box darf man einfach LDAP, Salesforce Integration, Facebook, Tief-Integration? Also Tiefintegration von Facebook, AuthorizeNet, Google Everything, irgendwelche. Behavior Extensions sind auch sehr einfach. Wir haben schon in Core Robust Data Validation, Complicated Content Workflows sind auch ganz einfach. Granular User Permissioning and ACLs, Encrypted Data Stores sind auch einfach. Und alles kommt out of the box mit also für was so kompliziert ist, relativ einfache Admin UI, der ist einfach zu overriden, sagt man, customisieren, so gesagt, mit WYSIWYG, mit einem ganz administrative Menu System. Und auch kommt es mit sehr leicht und schnelles Performance. Drupal 8, this is way easier in English. Drupal 8 has multi-layered caching built in, what we like to call poor man's reverse proxy, actually implemented in PHP with cache tags, something that most of you who are using performance in modern day applications should be familiar with. You don't have to use Drupal's own internal caching system. The tagging system is totally compatible with any modern front-end reverse proxy. Varnish being the one that most of us use, of course, in a lot of CDNs. In fact, Rasmus Lerdorf, the creator of PHP, did a benchmark last year where he found that Drupal could serve 2,500 requests per second to anonymous users with 20 concurrents. Those kind of numbers are in the range of what you usually get from Varnish or from really flat HTML caching.
And that was before we did a lot of optimization in the cache tags.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, there's another round still coming. So the performance level is completely different from what you're used to from Drupal.
So, daher schlagen wir auch vor, aus vielerlei Grund, dass Drupal als Storage und Query Backend für Symfony-Applikationen eine valide Wahl ist.
So, it's okay. So, because we know that everyone here is a Symfony developer, not everyone is familiar with Drupal, we're going to cover some key core Drupal concepts first. Some of these bundles and concepts that are in Drupal core and are really required understanding. So first of all, data storage. There are two kinds of data storage. A key value store. I'm not going to explain that anymore. Well, hands up if you're confused and we can all make fun of you. Good? Oh. Well, now you make me feel bad. A very simple store where everything has a name and a value to it. You put whatever you want as long as it has a unique name, and that's how you address getting the value out. And the other one, which we use much more often, is the sogenannte entity model. Entities in Drupal are very similar to Symfony entities. In fact, they're exactly the same. The only difference is that in Drupal we have a couple of more layers of abstraction that are a bit tricky to do, or at least not in basic Symfony things that I've been building. So a good example of this is to have a look at product entities. I think this is a pretty easy one to understand. So there are different kinds of products. Man, I wish I had a laser pointer. Yeah. Oh man, I should have brought the green one. Sorry, you use it. So we can all understand that there are different types of products. These would definitely be different entity types in Symfony, because the fields you need on a t-shirt product are very different from the fields you need on a digital download versus an ebook versus a regular book versus a dinner date with Jam's mother. Those are all going to have different kinds of fields. But every entity, or we call this a bundle. These are different bundles that are defined by the different fields, metadata that are stored on them. But every entity of every content type also belongs to a higher level entity class. Those are, in this case, this is products. So all products have some universal attributes as well. They have a product ID and an SKU. They have a title and a language. We need to track some universal things about stock that are going to be the same regardless of whether it's a product or a t-shirt or what. It's easy to think about product as the entity type, like we'd be used to thinking of it, and product types as like subtypes. One layer of abstraction above that, every entity of every type implements a common interface. So that means that Drupal code can be totally agnostic as to what kind of content that it's working on. This can be a totally arbitrary data store. So the easy way that I like to explain this to normal PHP developers, an entity type is like a base class, a bundle is like an extended class, a field is a property, though there's a lot of different ways you can name that. And a specific entity is one particular instance of that base or extended class. When I say that we use entity store a lot, I really mean it for absolutely everything. So anything that you would expect to be, configuration normally stored in the database, those are stored through the entity model because that base class needs to have the ability to back everything up into YAML and import and export all the configuration from files so that you can move things around. They all need a universal interface, they need that syncing behavior, so even configuration is an entity type that is bundled into configuration types. Okay, it's demo time. So, to show how easy and light this is to make custom entity types, I'm going to make, I have to remember exactly what the demo steps I'm going to do are here. Here we go. So this is, wait. Oh man. Now how am I going to make this work? Hold on.
You said the word demo.
Exactly.
Without making a sacrifice to the demo gods.
Yeah.
The Wi-Fi is down in the whole hotel. The lights are going to go out in a second.
No, but I still can. No, okay.
Gather.
No, gather window doesn't work. The question is, I don't know the arrangement. Here we go. So. Oh. Okay, well, we're going to do that a few times. Just not all at once. I have to get this as big as I can without the responsive behavior kicking in. Yeah, okay, we'll go back to here. So this is a demo Drupal 8 site that I installed. Oh yeah, but now it's not mirrored. This is going to be impossible. Shoot, is anybody who is more familiar with how to make it mirror easily? Anybody help me? There we go. Thank you. so much better. Okay, still this far. Excellent. So Drupal comes built in with a few entity types in core. Of course, all of this can be disabled. There is a bare bones install that doesn't include it, but for a demo, this is much easier. We call it content entity because it's the most common use case. It's, you know what would be useful would be to log in. It's the most common use case. Every entity of the content type of the content entity type. Oh man, that's going to be a pain if I have to click through everything. Every entity of the content type has its own path. It has its own edit, view, administrative permissioning functions, and so on. We're going to create a new type because that's very easy to do. Give it a name. We can totally accept the defaults for the publishing workflow because we're not going to be demoing that. And we can add a few custom fields. So all of these field types, this is just what's built into core, and I think I haven't enabled a few of the modules, but they all come with, of course, reasonable validation, so you can make sure that they're actually putting in a reasonable email. For example. So what's interesting is that by doing this, it actually is saving the configuration in a way that's easy to synchronize to a YAML file. You can take the entire site's configuration and export it into a gzip set of YAML files that you can move to another site, and it will take your entire configuration. You can also write the YAML by hand if you have the time. But this took me 15 seconds, doing it slowly on the big screen and having to click. So it's extremely easy. And of course, all of those entities are then integrated with anything else that anybody builds in Drupal. So for example, oh, I see, I rebuilt my environment. I forgot to enable some of my convenience things. So let's enable the develop generate module that makes it really easy to generate libsym content, and we'll also do the administrative menu because it's just a lot faster. Good. It's just complaining that I haven't updated today. And you know what? I'm going to ignore it. Generate content. Here's my new demo type. This is easy and integrated, and I didn't have to do anything magical. Now, if you want to do that from the console, we have a concept in Drupal that is a console that is similar to the Symfony console. We try to take a lot of the same conventions. We would have to first generate a custom module. Sure, my awesome module is a good description. You can add your own composer.json if you want, but in this case we don't. Yes, we'll generate it, and then Drupal generate entity. Boy, I hope I remember that right. Yep. So we're going to generate a new content entity that actually sits at the same top level as the content entities that we were just looking at, the content entity types. I'm going to call this one my entity. Now, is the file browser at all visible to you guys? Okay, good. I'm always nervous about that. Here's my custom module, Symfony is rad. You can see that it auto-generated all of the scaffolding that we need, including menu, routing, permissions. You know, I just don't want to write it by hand. TWIG templates. The entity-based class itself is here. This actually should look pretty familiar to anybody who's ever implemented an entity in Symfony. It's definitely, the architecture is inspired from there. And we include an interface for it. We include a list builder for any time you want a standardized list of content in that entity type. and so on and so forth. All that easy and out of the box. So we'll just enable that module. What did I call it? Symfony is rad. And rebuild cache.
So even though I just said that we've built Drupal from the ground up to enable less technical users to have this kind of technology available to them, we've got a very, very strong desire to make our own days as developers easier and better. And we have a really, really strong couple of command line tools that, so Campbell's using Drush
and the Drupal console.
And the Drupal console, which is based on the Symfony console. And then you can do just about anything that you can do in the UI on the command line as well.
Mm-hmm. For those of us who want even more time set aside for beer. I live in Cologne. We've only got one kind of beer. I don't need that much time. Right, here's my new custom entity, and it has the exact same fielding interface. Just add one so that we can, well, let's do a link, why not? Great. We can change the way the form displays. We could change the way the actual rendered output displays the order of fields. You can have different kind of rendered output displays configured based on, is this a teaser build mode, or we're just looking for a small snippet? Are we looking for some other kind of small snippet that you want to define a custom name for? Or are we looking at the full piece of content? And this comes, of course, automatically with the specific permissions for it. I think that's everything that I want the demo. I have to find one. Now I have to figure out where the presentation went. Here, now we can unmirror. Yeah, I found the presentation. Yeah, field UI for the unmirror. Great. Ooh, we made it. That'll go easier next time. So, that's one important concept, is creating and storing data in entity types. The other part is the query builder that sits at the heart. This is actually our own implementation of Doctrine, but then we put a GUI on top of it because it's a fundamental design decision in Drupal, is that we want to empower non-programmers to be able to make architectural choices and build architecture. I think also some of us are just lazy and like to do it fast. Oops, back one. Yeah. So in code, we have what we call an entity query. It's a service that lets you build queries semantically. It actually is, I think, easier to use than Doctrine. That's right, and we have a render system. I guess I didn't need to go back. So we're going to have a look quickly at Drupal views. So this is our query builder that sits in the administrative interface. It is a module that's built into Drupal 8 core, but it sits at the heart of almost every site built in Drupal for the last 8 years. I don't know when the first version came out, 2003, something like that. So I call it a query builder, but the point of views is, again, for regular users, so we don't stop at just getting you the node object, for example, the content object. It actually will put it through the templating system and output in whatever arbitrary format or structure you want. That could be HTML in a variety of structures. Maybe you want a UL, maybe you want a table, maybe you want it to look like a grid or to come out in a masonry.js layout. All of that is possible and easy. But maybe you want an arbitrary DOM, or maybe you want it to come out in RSS or XML or JSON. Maybe you want it to accept arguments so that you can implement the read end of a proper REST interface. That's all out of the box.
Yeah, and so every view in Drupal 8 is web services endpoint, automatically comes for free.
Yeah. Views also does the data sanitization for you. It scrubs everything that it presents, even though things were already scrubbed before they ever made it into the database. So even if you do have some malicious content in there, it's still safe to show through the Views API. Each view can be saved and exported as a content entity in YAML. So for example, I have one standard view that I use every time somebody wants a front page carousel and I can't convince them that carousels are evil. I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. And of course, because Views is such a popular module and it's been around for so long, there's a whole ecosystem of plugins and extensions that you can get as contributed code. It's one of the first places that module authors make their integrations. Oh, I forgot about these. Boy, I should have done that while I was talking. Yeah, integrated, and last one. My favorite part is caching like a boss. It's very tightly coupled to the multi-layered tagged caching system. So not only is your view cached as fully rendered HTML, but it's also cached as a series of objects. It's also cached as a pre-rendered array with all the information needed for rendering, and even as a raw query response.
So while Camel is setting up the Views demo, I just want to talk about one of my favorite, personally very, very favorite parts of the Drupal 8 rebuild. Up through Drupal 7, we had the administrative back end essentially hard-coded, and people who have to live and work in your site every day, sometimes they love it, sometimes they hated it, but it was very, very hard to customize in certain ways. It was easy to customize what you could see and do through permissions, but how it looks and feels and works was kind of hard. We ripped out all of the boilerplate code that made the administrative back end, and every single administrative page in the back end is now simply a view. And anybody who knows how to manipulate a view, which is just a big database query, can make exactly the back end that you want or need. So you have an incredible range of customization options in this CMS to make it exactly what your clients want or need, what's displayed where, how it's listed, all of that is incredibly elegant, and it saved us a ton of code. We ripped out thousands and thousands of lines.
We used the double slash code optimization trick.
The speed up operator, right?
Right, we're going to create a quick view. Content that I like. Sure. So there's this simplified little wizard experience for building it where you can choose from any kind of entity. I'm going to speed through it really quickly. We're just going to take articles because I know I have nodes of that. I know I have content of that type. We'll make this view output a page in HTML, so that means it has a place in the menu router, in the menu and in the router. That means we'll have a pager at the bottom that's automated. We'll make sure we have the menu link, that's good. We'll also have it create a block, which means it's basically sidebar matter, a secondary piece of content. We'll show 5, and maybe we'll make it a grid? No, let's make an HTML.
This one checkbox at the bottom is provide a REST export, turns on, makes this website a web service. There's a fantastic Drupal 8 set of sites operating in Switzerland. This is for Südostschweiz.de, a big news organization, and they have a partnership with the local bus system. And the local bus system presents, that screen with the next stops, and then the headlines of the day, and then the the advertising, and it cycles through that. Well, the headlines of the day, when the editors are writing the news articles for the day, they have a view mode, which is like the teaser, which is a headline and one sentence about it that they've created in advance. Any news article that they want to appear on the buses, they click this, and the buses are picking that web service up and displaying it. And it required no setup.
So, because this is a complicated tool that can do a lot of things, the interface is unfortunately not exactly friendly for my mom. But for people who are used to looking at code, this is not so bad. So one view, imagine it as a base class, has multiple displays, multiple ways that the output can be displayed. Each display can override individual elements, so maybe you want the title of your block to be different from the title of your page, or you need different classes around a certain field. That's totally fine. For each view, you get to choose the format. So these are built into code. Not difficult to add a new one. You have to implement a class and register it. Ooh. We could make this a table. Well, let's make it a table. Why not?
Only if you've got the spacer gifts here.
I don't know.
Are you all too young for that?
Thank you, Jim. Makes me feel young again. So that's it. The output is a table showing title, type, art. So for each field, you get unique settings, very easy to click through. How do you want to click sort it? What do you want the output to look like? So in this case, the body field, do we want it to be a summary or trimmed or what? Of course, those are also easy to modify. I'm just going to skip through, but you could also say that you want the entire rendered entity. In this case, tags, that refers to a whole other entity type. With a single drop-down, you've got it included in your query, and it's really easy to render the whole thing. Now, what I realized is, because this is actually a totally fresh install, I'm going to have to generate a little bit of content again, because we're not going to get anything without content. Sure. It's a listen generator site. So here we have our tables. Why is a terrible, terrible design decision to put a body, a full body into a table? Let's just make that quick change to an unformatted list of divs. Great. Took me 2 seconds. You can set custom filter criteria, expose them as a form with literally a checkbox. That generates the form with the backend processor. You can have the form submit by AJAX by clicking another checkbox. All of that is already implemented for you.
So I like to build the kind of pages where the users can sort by date or by alphabet or by whatever, and that 1 click, 2 clicks ago is the setting for that.
Mm-hmm. And you can even swap in and out different caching mechanisms. These are the ones that come with Drupal core, tag-based or time-based expiry of the cache, but it's certainly possible to write other ones. All right, what this is doing on the inside is our equivalent of, our abstraction on top of Doctrine. So I'm just going to very quickly show you what that looks like. And not the interface, I want the actually. Doesn't matter, because I'm not actually even going to run it. I just want something, someplace where I can use syntax highlighting that'll look okay. I don't believe that this class has the services container, so I have to populate that first. Should all be really familiar to people. So there's our entity query service. I'm going to tell it specifically that we want the node data storage. Every entity type can implement its own separate data storage. So if you have one kind of data that needs to be on MongoDB and another that needs to be on Cassandra and the other one that needs to be stored by sending letters to someone, you can do it. Okay, so there's my query. Condition, what are we going to say? Title, let's say that it contains libsym, because I really hope there's something that does to have that. We can query conditions of related entities. So this is going to be from a field term. I think it's called name, actually. And wait a minute, condition singular. Thank you. That will get us an array of results, of result entity IDs. Now, Drupal 8 is still in transition to a completely OO framework, so some of the old procedural commands are still available, so like entity load multiple. But you can see result. You can see that already PHP Storm doesn't like that. It knows that it's deprecated. Much better would be to say, get the entity manager service, tell it that we want the storage for nodes, and load multiple. That's totally equivalent and actually the preferred way. So this is all that's happening on the inside. Looks pretty similar, pretty familiar, yeah? I have a few head nods. I'll buy you a beer if it doesn't. I can say that because I'm going backward afterwards. All right. Yeah. Excellent.
Ooh, so this idea of putting Symfony and Drupal together has already been happening for a while. Fabrice Bernard, who I haven't seen here so far, from TWIG, actually wrote the TWIG Drupal 8 bundle, which implements this kind of magic, and it allows you to access Drupal services from Symfony and vice versa. You can store your data in Drupal, pull your data out with the entity service, views that we just saw, and use it in your Symfony application. It looks kind of like this.
Yeah, so it allows you to do, this is actually the example from his presentation on it. It allows you to do something like this, where you could get the Drupal kernel, you could use Drupal's request handler, you can get any of our services in Drupal and use it. You can even get the views service and pull out just the fully rendered HTML. Go ahead. Right, so this is what he ends up with, is that he builds a couple of methods on his own. In the end, since Drupal comes integrated with TWIG, your templating language would even be the same. So it's kind of an open question, where do you even want this to render?
Now the trick is, I'm not sure we can manage the rest in 2 minutes, but give us 4 and I think we can get there. So, when you build an application this way, and especially, so we've also been talking with some other audiences, like, what if you've built, somebody in your company's built this awesome Angular thing, but now they need to make it into a real application. You're left with a lot of stuff to do, okay? So we saw that, for example, Drupal takes care of menu routing for you, machine readability is in there, caching architecture, we have an amazing multilingual translation localization set up in Drupal 8 out of the box. You can install it in any language you want. It doesn't have to be English. From the second click you make, you don't have to be in English anymore. It doesn't have to run in English. Multilingual is solved incredibly well. And it allows you to get a life and have some more beers. We're going to skip this one.
But, but the lessons to learn from it is that we implement the Symfony entire event system. So all of it is totally customizable, as well as it would be in any Symfony application. It's easy to jump in. There are limitations to events, we all know that. So we still use some old Drupal hooks to get around that, in terms of especially performance areas and areas where you're going to have a lot of modules interacting.
We're working very hard on killing those though.
Yeah, they're going to die soon. Yeah, and of course, because we use Symfony's dependency injection container, if you want to provide a totally different version of the same name service, you can do that.
So we're suggesting that this is an okay way to work, but Drupal solves a lot of these problems for you very, very well. It also provides incredibly good accessibility. It's been certified for a lot of governments around the world, for example. Big pipe architecture, all sorts of stuff. So we're suggesting that...
So it begs the question of, where do you actually render this, and what is the point of wrapping, if you're just building a simple website, there's not much point in wrapping Drupal 8 in Symfony. You're adding complexity without getting any extra benefit out of it. So we would suggest that you should save the Symfony wrapped Drupal architecture for when you need really heavy custom lifting. If you're building a site that just has simple stuff, authenticated users, editor interface, content workflows, multilingual, and some integrations, just use pure Drupal.
Try.
It's easy. It's easier and faster. That's what it's good at.
But you're really, really good at awesome custom apps, and we're suggesting that now we can really work together on this kind of a project very,
Since
very
you
well.
can use the same data store, when you need something that's totally custom behavior that actually needs heavy lifting in custom code and needs the Symfony architecture, that's when you wrap Drupal. That's when you use it as a backend. So there are use cases for this.
So here's a quick glance at an architecture model that we think would work pretty well.
So Drupal 8 handles the basic website, storage, query, and process through the HTML5 output and content admin. We use a Symfony wrapper so that you can actually write Symfony applications for the really complicated and extremely custom parts. Because it's Drupal, you've already got direct integrations with your backend that are really easy for whatever other services and systems your client has, Salesforce or whatever. And because Drupal is easy to make into a REST endpoint, you can have a whole ecosystem of really lightweight apps around it as well.
So, and we've seen very similar things in operation, and we think this is a great. We're very excited about being able to work this way, and we really hope that you're going to come over and check out what Drupal's got to offer now. We told you today, Drupal 8 is something that you really haven't seen before. Like, it's got mostly reasonable code. And it's pretty familiar to you. We think it can save you a lot of time, solve a lot of pain points out of the box for you. And really, Drupal's a fun community. It's a great bunch of people. So come on over and check us out. 2 minutes over time. Thank you for your patience. If you liked our presentation, this is the join in link. The slides are on speaker deck. If you didn't like it, our names are Fabien Potencier, and you can read our talk. Please come and talk to us afterwards. Unfortunately, Campbell has to run away very, very quickly. I'm going to be around for all the way through Saturday, so yeah, I'd love to talk with you about what we've got going on, and I'd love to learn more about what's going on over here.